Hey everyone, just got done recording with Matt Hoying, president of Choice One Engineering, which is a company that's known for being the best place to work and gets accolades for that all the time. I also hear from so many people locally just what a great company it is. And Matt is leading the charge and he's a great leader, as you'll hear in our discussion. He talks about decision filters and he says, hey, I don't like the term and throw out the term best practices. That's not the way to do things. The leader's role and sometimes being a psychologist. We talk about if you're trying to build a team, a culture, and whether that's part of a good broader culture or not, he explains to us how we can do that ourselves. And finally, he gives a great book recommendation that I hadn't heard about and I'm really excited to read. And he, just to speak to the kind of guy that Matt is, after the discussion, he said, hey, I'm going to send that to you. Look for it in the mail. So I'm going to check that out. But great discussion. This guy is living leadership. He's a great example for all of us to follow. I think you're going to enjoy it. Check it out. Hello and welcome to the Purpose Matrix. I'm very excited for today's guest, Matt Hoying. Matt, how are you doing today?
Phil, I'm doing great. This is awesome. I'm excited to be here today.
Well, for our listeners, you're in for a treat. Matt is I was joking with him, but local legend. I say that because Matt is the president of Choice One Engineering, which if you follow them online, if you talk to any of their employees, they are just known for their company culture. They're always winning awards for best place to work. They really have it together and they're doing a lot of great things, not just for their customers, for their employees, also the community. In addition to that, Matt, husband, father, we were talking beforehand. We both have 5 kids, girl, boy, girl. Mine are about a year older. So I'm warning him of all the things that are coming here for him. Like I'm like, I can foreshadow the issues you're going to be having, at home with your kids. But anyway, Matt, really impressive background. You started as an intern back in the day, and then you grew to president. But so tell me kind of your backstory and how that came about.
Yeah. So, if I really go far back, it starts when I was a senior in high school and trying to decide what I was going to college to major in, and had a high school math teacher that asked me that question. And I told him I was going to be a math teacher. I really wanted to help people and I enjoyed math, and he was impactful in that learning experience for me. And he looked right at me, Phil, and said, Matt, don't do that. You'll be a terrible math teacher. And so I was like, oh, okay, thanks for the confidence. But he explained it, and he helped me identify that where I succeed most often in helping people is when they want to help themselves, when they want to get better and grow and develop, and they just need a little guidance to get there. And he pointed out that a lot of times in the teaching world, unless you're going to get your doctorate and teach really high level college courses, you're always going to have kids in that class that don't want to be there. And he had seen me help tutor kids over the years enough to know that I was going to struggle and I was not going to be the best leader for those people. And that teaching was going to be frustrating for me and frustrating for those kids. So through the conversation, as it continued, he helped me realize that really what I wanted to do is help people. I've identified a personal vision statement as being a positive impact for others so that we can enjoy life together. And that's really what that has come from. And so he asked what else I thought I might do. And I said, well, I want to help people. Maybe I'll get into business and get into leading people. And he recommended I get into engineering and project management that at the end of the day really is people management. He thought I could handle the coursework of engineering and it would help set me apart from other people getting a general business degree when I went to get that job. So, sure, great, sounds good. My oldest brother is an engineer, so I thought, well, he likes it. Maybe I'll like it too. I got into it not really knowing what it was. Grew up in Russia, Ohio. Choice One, it was in Sydney, Ohio at the time, 15 minutes away. I could live at home, work there during the summers in college. It was a great fit. Fortunate enough to get into a company that I instantly connected with. Their attention to culture and people development and growth really resonated with me. And so I came back for the following 2 summers and they offered me a full-time job. It allowed me to be in a company that I loved, allowed me to stay close to home. My wife now, girlfriend at the time, was 2 years younger than I was, so allowed me to stay around while she was finishing her degree as a nurse, and really got into the company and engineering that way, not because I grew up, building things and wanting to be an engineer. I grew up on a farm. I loved being outside. I actually thought surveying when I started here. I thought surveying was what I wanted to do. Those guys are outside all the time. This is awesome. I get to be in a different place. And then one of them pointed out to me, well, you've only ever done this during the summer. You haven't done it when it's 10 degrees outside in the winter. So fortunately, I stayed the course that I am, and Choice One has been, and the people here have been a great mentor for me as I've continued to grow and develop and filled different roles within the organization as an engineer first, and then went with another engineer down, started a new geographic location for us outside of Cincinnati in Loveland, Ohio. Started that office and went from being an engineer to being a business development, a salesperson, cold calling, and just trying my hand at that and believing in what Choice One brought and the value we can bring to clients, and going and trying to sell that message to a market that never heard of Choice One, much less a lot of them not having heard of Sydney, Ohio. And that became a successful venture and eventually led into a transition that my former president at Choice One had put in place that I would take over for him. And in the end of 2016, that transition happened and I became president of Choice One.
Well, cool story. First of all, it's a little bit eerie because we talked about our kids are basically like girl, girl, boy, boy, girl. I thought I wanted to be a math teacher. I went into engineering originally because my older brothers were engineering. It's like, okay, you're kind of enjoy math. I didn't know anything. I was not a good engineer, by the way. I'm sure you're a way better engineer than me, but very similar. But I want to ask you a question. You talked about your personal mission statement, and I'll paraphrase it, but positive impact on other people, the world around you, however you said it. But how do you take this and how do you apply this both at home and at work?
Great question, Phil. At home and at work, the personal vision just gives me some guidance. Gives me that voice on the shoulder that helps me determine whether what I'm doing is really going to provide fulfillment for me or not. So in that mission, be a positive impact for others, that we are enjoying life together. A big component of that is other people, and that positive impact is a positive impact on them. So I need to understand them. I need to get to know them at a level that I can truly understand how I make that impact for them. It's not how Matt Hoying wants to impact them. It's how they need to be impacted by Matt Hoying at that point in time. I'm a faith-based guy, Phil. I believe that God has put me on this planet to do certain things with the skills that he's given me. And so I believe that I'm put in those situations every day to help people get where they want to go. And anytime I miss that opportunity, I've missed doing what he's asked me to do. And so I look at that at home and at work, and I'm trying to do the same thing. Sometimes I feel like I do it better at work with the people here than I do at home. And other times I feel like I do it better at home than I do it here. And it's been very hard for me personally over the years to try to separate the level of care and concern that I have for people. The 86 of us here at Choice One are family to me, just like the 6 people that I go home to every day, my wife and my 5 kids. I get to spend a different amount of time with them, and we're doing different things. And I would say it's more predictable here, because we're dealing with, people of similar age, similar life experiences. Whereas at home, my kids are from 13 to 3 years old, and different personalities. I didn't get to sit down and hire them, hire slowly with them. That's who God put in our life, my wife and my life. And thank God for her that she manages that way better than I do. But that's how I use that statement. It kind of just reminds me like, hey, I've been put here for a reason. That reason's not for Matt Hoying. That reason's for how can God work through me to help other people get where he wants them to be.
Yeah, I love that. And I think the important part, a big component, you said these words, a big component of that is other people. And I think that's really important. And I think, so like the book, Good to Great, there's other books that talk about how do you find purpose? And I like your purpose statement because it's general, but you can apply it in different areas. But for me, like I've landed on something that's a little bit different. And I think you're saying this, but it's okay, how do you combine a passion, which you're saying, look, if we can impact other people, but also how do you add a skill to that, which, I would say your skill early on was maybe engineering, math, but that has evolved and you've grown into people and leadership. And by the way, you are being humble, but yes, people are unpredictable at home and probably more unpredictable. But in general, the role of leadership, people are also just people. They're humans and they're unpredictable. So that is a challenge. But anyway, my kind of three, if you take your passion, your skill, and then you put others or God in the other, like if you a Venn diagram, that's, I think, how you can help find your purpose and your passion. I wasn't planning on going here, but I just want to ask, and sorry if I put you on the spot. If I do, we'll edit it out, Matt. How are you applying faith in your business? Like, is it just being good people, or is it more than that?
That's a great question, Phil, and one I've struggled with a lot over the years. At the end of the day, it's looking at being Christian, and our values tie back to being Christian, good moral people that I believe can be Christ-like in our life. We don't specifically have moments of prayer or things like that. Our former president Tony does lead a Bible study for people that choose to participate in that, but that's completely voluntary and really outside of the work hours. But yeah, it's not specific. We don't have it posted anywhere. We don't mention it anywhere. It just is more of a personal guiding light that then filters through, I think, through the rest of the company. And we're fortunate. I consider it fortunate. We're fortunate enough that we have a lot of people here that share similar faith-based values. And so it's not shied away from in conversation by any means.
Yeah. And I like that a lot. And I think what's important for any business leaders, entrepreneurs, and I say business leaders, not business owners, like leaders just within your group, your department, whatever it may be, is what I heard is, first of all, your core values are rooted in your faith, but also the door is open. If like, there's no closed doors here. The door is open where people can walk in. You can have that conversation. It's known that it's kind of an open door policy to be able to talk about that if people want to, which I appreciate. And you referenced Tony, who is a phenomenal leader in and of itself. I was talking to our operations manager yesterday. We're talking about the team, and one of the roles. How do you feel about this? This is completely off the cuff again, but as a leader of your business, how much of the role how much do you feel like you're the, leadership? Do you ever feel like you're just being a psychologist sometime and really helping? Like you should have went into the field of psychology and understood it more, because, we're not always well equipped to handle some of the situations that you face as human beings, but it's really about being a leader of people. Do you ever feel this way? Because maybe this is just me like sulking or looking for help or guidance here, because I feel like that's part of the role.
No, I think it maybe is the role, leading people, helping them be the best version of themselves. There's a lot of times I go home at the end of the day and I try to reflect back on what I did. And I look at that list that I had at the start of the day, and like, I didn't touch any of those things. Right? Like I didn't get to any of those phone calls that I wanted to call back, or I didn't get to those engineering things that I was trying to do, or the structural changes that we're trying to adjust. But you know what I did have? I had 5 really meaningful conversations with people that needed me in that moment. So I think there's a lot of times that I wish I was more equipped to handle it. I will say that we have fully embraced a coaching culture and mindset here at Choice One, and learned a lot from that mindset, leading powerful conversations, listening. I mean, listening is a skill that will never be as good as what I want to be at it. I'm pretty convinced of that. But a lot of times, our belief is people have the next best answer within themselves. They just need someone to help them get to that. And a lot of times that just requires a question. That's interesting. Why is that important to you? And Get them to talk about it at one level deeper than what they've previously processed it. And then all of a sudden there becomes an aha moment in their own mind that says, oh, I get it. I'm doing this because, I have a personal value of achievement, or I'm doing this because I want to be a mentor for my kids or whatever. Things like that. That's how I fill my cup. At the end of the day, when I get to go home and, that's where I say, okay, I've achieved that, being a positive impact for someone.
So first of all, I'm going to steal that because I go home so many times like, what did I do today? So I'm going to write down hopefully hopefully I'll have those meaningful conversations, but I'm going to write down, okay, you know what? I spent time, it wasn't on my list, but I spent time listening, having a conversation, giving feedback, whatever it might be. I love, by the way, if you're listening to this now and you're like, well, I don't know how to ask those questions. This is very much a skill that can also be developed. You said, oh, that's interesting. Or just a phrase like, oh, really? Tell me more. There's ways to build your skills around creating conversations and drawing people out and learning more about them and what they're really thinking without you telling them exactly what to do. And it kind of brings up, this whole topic brings up, I think, I referenced best place to work, choice one. You said culture. You said coaching culture. You referenced, you talk about, you've weaved this in the conversation already, but like growth mindset, I think one of your core values is opportunity through learning. But if we step back and, you came into a culture, you've grown that culture. Tell me what is at the core of how you are doing that?
The core of it is our people, our people's interest in engagement of wanting to help choice one be better, wanting to help everyone, the people next to them, be better. Clarity around what the purpose of our organization is. So provide fulfilling lives for a lifetime. We don't want anybody here working here for a lifetime, like a literal lifetime. We want them to have time after choice one, time outside of choice one. So clarity around that is our purpose. We're an engineering and surveying landscape architecture company, Phil. Nowhere in our purpose statement or our mission statement, making lives better with an enjoyable experience, do we mention engineering, surveying, landscape architecture, because that's not what we're hiring for. That's not the types of people we're trying to hire. We want to hire really good people that are motivated, they're humble, they're hungry, they're people smart. They want to grow and become better people themselves. And part of that is the professional skill, the professional service they provide. But that's only a part of it. There's also part of that of wanting to be better people. The founders, in my opinion, and I wasn't around then, but they did a really great job of understanding the importance of that from day one. And when there's 5 people that found the company with that purpose in mind, and then they hire 6 and 7 and 10 and 20, and the more people you have, the easier it is for that to just kind of spread. And as individuals in the company, we expect that from everybody else. And so it starts to become evident when people don't value those same values, right? And that's what we try to do that in our hiring process. Identify, do we have a values alignment here? Will you appreciate the purpose and the mission of choice one and help us enhance that and help us move it forward? So I think at the core of it is the clarity around what we're doing and why we're doing it. But then it's hiring people that want to support that and want to make sure everyone else does, so that it's not up to Matt Hoying as an individual person or, our HR lead, Hannah, to make sure everybody's following that. All 86 of us hold that as our personal responsibilities.
Yeah. And what I like is you just talking about being an engineering firm is in the core of your mission statement or purpose statement. It's just like engineering and what people do, the skills that they have, like the technical skills they have, I'll even say that's a vehicle to connect with people and to have an impact on them. The other thing I like, what's interesting is when you talked about, if I go back to the math teacher discussion, your hiring process, you're saying is there values alignment. And the first thing you said is, are they motivated? Basically, you're using the values as a company to hire motivated people that then allow you to not teach, you're not then coaching the math kid that is unmotivated. Your hiring process is designed to filter them out and bring in the people that are motivated, and you can just train them on the technical skills. And of course, train them on the soft skills and leadership skills too, as you guys are doing. And what's really interesting is, maybe I'll phrase this as a question, because I think you kind of started down this path, but your core values have early on guided your hiring. But now your culture, I think, is guiding your hiring, but more importantly, probably the filter to, I'm sure you've had people that come in and maybe they just don't fit the culture. Yes, listing the core values and talking about them is important. Because you're a big enough company now, the culture is probably the filter in and of itself.
Yeah. We talk about a decision filter at Choice One that starts with purpose, vision, mission, and as it continues to narrow down, our core values get in there, and then our strategic priorities from a business perspective are in there. But the top 4 layers of that are our culture. The purpose, vision, mission, core values, that guides our behaviors, and our behavior is our culture. Everything we do here is part of our culture. So the way we hire is part of our culture. And do we get it 100% right all of the time? No, but I think we get it right a lot more often because of that focus. As much time as we'd like to spend with people on the interview side, we have a finite amount of time to figure out who they are, truly who they are, and what are they going to value. So we get the chance to get them in here to be a part of Choice One, and they get absorbed by the culture. And they either realize fairly quickly, hey, I love this and I'm a part of it, I want to make it better, or they start finding ways to try to avoid it. And that's when it starts becoming apparent to people is, hey, this person's not living opportunity through learning as much. They're not participating in the conversations that are helping other people learn, or they're not being as timely as we'd like them to be. Those are our indications that maybe there's something here that we need to have these conversations, work through it. And we give people, I've heard you hire slow, fire fast. We do not fire fast. We make sure we understand the impact that that's going to have on that person and their family and their lives. We want to make sure we're not making a haste decision. We all make mistakes, Phil. I make mistakes. There's days I come in here and I need someone to point out to me that I'm not living the core values, right? It's not a one strike and you're done kind of environment. We want to help people understand, here's what we're seeing. We don't think this is who you want to be if you want to be a part of Choice One. And can we make some corrections and changes or not?
So you talked about your decision filter process too, right? And you talked about the top 4. You did reference strategy, and I'm sure behind strategy that we're getting into, I'll combine these, but strategy, tactics, like how are we going to grow this business, financials, numbers, things like that. But I think that's like number 5 or 6 or wherever it is down the list. Are you making tough decisions that don't always support the bottom line or just are against the bottom line to support it? Tell me more about that.
Yeah. We are, and we have, and I hope we will always make those decisions that I like to say that those are the decisions that outside looking in, people don't understand why we've made them. We've got some big examples, some small examples. One of the largest ones was several years ago now, but we had the opportunity to open an office in a location with a dedicated client that was going to add $500,000 to the top line, right away, year one. And that would have gotten us into a geographic location that we could have grown. At the 11th hour, we decided we weren't going to move forward with that decision because the working relationship between our people and that client was not going to be enjoyable. We were not going to be able to live our mission, making lives better with an enjoyable experience with that client. Could we have made money? Could we have been as profitable as we wanted to be? And could it have opened up a new market for us? All of those, absolutely yes. From a business standpoint, I think almost everybody would have said, go do it and figure out how to make the soft side, the personal side of it work, right? But we looked at it and said, we would rather not grow in that market and keep our people able to live our purpose and live our mission every day.
Yeah. No, I like that. And I think what's challenging here as leaders is people want growth, right? Growth, like if you're not growing, you're dying. Like people want growth. People want to be a part of something that is winning, of a business that is winning and growing. People want that. But you got to be really smart about how you do that. We see this ourselves, and yes, we want that, but we can't compromise what we're all about for the sake of that, right? And we definitely can't grow for growth's sake. So there's definitely a balance here. And we have to, you said this, we talked about it a little bit before, but we have to be extremely intentional about the culture we're creating and the long-term value of the business is going to be most closely tied to your culture over anything else. An acquisition, you name it. If you have a good culture, you're going to figure out things over the next 2, 5, 10 years that are going to grow the business because you have the right people in place. And those are your words. You said just being super intentional. Top 4 decision filters really around mission, purpose, and people over strategy. So I appreciate that. Maybe this ties to starting a new location. You have a core value and a culture that is in place, let's say 50, 80 employees in a location. People come in, they see the culture as we talked about. We start a new office in Cincinnati, Ohio, or wherever it might be. Employee number 1, there's not a culture they're going into that. Yes, you try to tie them in. And I want to tie that to maybe someone is in an organization where they're a business leader or a manager and they're managing 5 people and the broader culture isn't great, but they want to create a phenomenal culture within their department or within their group. How do we do this when, we don't have the culture in place? How would you start fresh or build it?
Yeah. Phil, for me, being where I'm at now, having the benefit of hindsight being 2020, I would start with defining those layers of your own filter. You don't have to have a company purpose. What's your department purpose? What's your individual purpose? How do you want to live day to day? How do you want your people to live day to day? You want to come in, you want to be a super productive environment that the most important thing is getting things done and getting them out the door. That's not wrong. That can be a great culture if you've intentionally built everything around that, if you've intentionally hired people that want to do that, right? So there's not I mentioned to you before we started, I don't love the best practice term. I don't love the idea of a best practice because it's only a best practice in that company, in that culture, with those people. You've really got to take ideas that you either brainstorm yourself, learn from other thought leaders, and run it through your own filter and see, okay, how are we going to take this idea and implement it? We practice financial transparency here at Choice One, follow a lot of the principles of the great game of business is kind of where this started from. But we struggled at the beginning finding examples of service companies, professional service companies that were operating under transparency. So it was really easy for us to decide early on, or it would have been easy for us to decide early on to say, this is too hard. There's nobody else out there doing it. There's probably a reason for that. Let's just scrap it and put it on the shelf. Tony Schrader, who was leading the company and the charge on transparency at the time, kept going back to the filter and saying, if we can provide more transparency, people will have more fulfilling lives because they'll understand how their day-to-day impacts them and the company and the people around them. Transparency has to be the right thing for Choice One. We just need to figure out how to get there, how to make Choice One's transparency model work within Choice One's culture. So going back to your question, I think it starts with defining your own filter. And then as you're hiring, just everything you do, run it through that filter and decide, does this fit? Does this flow through from line to line to line and it gets through, it passes every level of the filter? Then it's going to work. That's been our experience. The stuff that doesn't work, I can look back on and say, oh, we were so excited about this. We clearly ignored the fact that didn't help us achieve our vision. And that's why that's not working now.
Yeah. Great Game of Business by Jack Stack. I read it a while ago. I think it's a phenomenal book. So I want to talk about that financial transparency. Then I want to, by the way, what I like before, so I'll go there next to give you kind of a forewarning. But what I like about, and you talked about Tony, the answer wasn't, I can't. The answer wasn't no. And I think as individuals in our personal lives, in our business lives, the answer a lot of times we tell ourselves is, I don't know how, I can't do that. And his question wasn't, hey, best practice is do this. It was, how do we apply this? Let's figure it out. So don't say to yourself, I can't. Say to yourself, how can I? And start to get input, feedback, brainstorm on it, write on it, journal on it, whatever it is to figure out how you do it. So I think the question is, transparency for people listening, financial transparency specifically for people listening, they just thought in their minds, 10 things, 10 issues with doing that. My employees are going to see this. My employees are going to see that. My employees are going to know this or that. They're thinking of all these issues and challenges with it. And you faced all those, I'm sure. So why, just tell me more about the benefits you've seen from it and how you manage some of the issues that are probably top of mind for people.
Yeah. So a lot of those things went through our head. What are employees going to think when they see how much money the owners are making, for example? And what I'd say is, if you don't tell them, they've created their own story. And I can remember when we first unveiled this, we took the whole company off site and Tony was going through this for everybody. One of the questions we asked him was, how much money do you think the owners make at Choice One? And at that time, we were a $4 million company. So $4 million in revenue. $4 million was the number they thought the owners were making. So that's the story in their head that they have created because we have not provided them any information or education behind. No, for every dollar that comes in here, here's all of the pennies that come out. And at the end, we're hoping to have some profit. So, for us, Daniel Pink has a book, Drive, talks about purpose, mastery, autonomy. And that's really what individuals as human beings, that's what we want. We want to have a purpose for our life. We want to have the autonomy to be able to make decisions for ourselves and be able to have the opportunity to become masters at what we do. We really believed that. We read that book as a group, as kind of a leadership group. We believed those philosophies and we said, how can people become masters at what they do, have autonomy in what they do, and ultimately find a purpose in their life if they don't have the transparency to understand that how what they does makes an impact on the company. And I've got some stories that I can share another day of people in our organization. A lot, because we're engineers, a lot of us have gone to college. A lot of us have a 4-year degree, and I've heard people say, well, it works at Choice One because you have highly intelligent people. We have people at Choice One that have high school educations. And some of our most impactful stories of them changing behavior because of the transparency have come from those people. People that have found ways that now they can take some ownership in the company by making a decision that's going to be better for the company. And it's just been really cool. It's definitely one of those things. I understand the fears. I understand the concerns, but I've yet to see, and we've been doing this now this is our 11th year. We started in January of 2015. I've not once had a situation where I said, I wish we weren't as transparent. We went through COVID and we could be transparent with our cash flow plan and say, look, here's our plan. We don't know what this environment's going to look like. Here's where we need to get to before we stop, where we have to do payroll reductions, before we start considering callback from owners, before we start considering layoffs. When you can be transparent with people, they no longer have to worry about what might happen.
Yep.
I'm a big believer if you don't help provide people the information, they're going to create their own story. Yeah. We want to be a part of that story, and we want to help them develop as accurate a story as possible. And so for us, it's not just, okay, guys, here's the financial statements. Let me know if you have questions. we spend a lot of time on educating them on here's what this line item means and here's how your role impacts this line item so that they can actually take the information and change their behavior.
Yeah. First of all, this is amazing. And again, The Great Game of Business by Jack Stack. The other one I heard here is the book Drive, about purpose, autonomy, and mastery, which I have not read. So I'll need to check that out. So with all these different, I'll say strategies, but, focus around people and really focus around your core mission, which, by the way, isn't just around people while they're at work, but their entire lives, both 24/7 now and after choice one. But what is your, maybe combine two things. First, your approach and your leadership style and kind of your role. And I know you have a good CEO, COO relationship in your organization too. So tell me about your approach, your role, and how are you leading the company?
Yeah. Phil, if I could show you our organization structure, we've set an organization structure up that supports our culture, collaborative environment. It's very flat. We've actually visually identified it as a train. And my role as president is I'm at the front of the train, coincidentally, the engineer of the train. I'm looking forward. I'm looking forward at that track to 1, 2, 3 years forward and trying to make sure that the company, the people on that train are going to have the resources to do what they need to do when that time comes. I'm trying to get rid of roadblocks as much as possible ahead of time. What track we follow, where that train goes is not decided by Matt Hoying. It's decided by the other people at Choice One. We have a development plan process here where we talk to our people twice a year. What's your growth interest? What do you want to do differently than what you're doing today? Maybe you want to keep doing what you're doing today, but I review every single one of those, and that gives me the insight of, as a company, do we want to grow? Do we want to maintain where we're at? Do we want to chase this opportunity down this path, or go the other way and follow this opportunity? So I like to say I lead by looking back. In the picture of that train, I'm looking backwards to everyone else in that train, see where they're going. Because if one car in that train starts to lean in a different direction, the whole train doesn't get where it wants to go, right? It derails. So we all need to be on the same path. And my leadership style isn't one that I don't want to put the energy into pulling people. I don't want to pull people to where Matt Hoying wants to get to go. I want to lead that train for as long as my skill set and my ability allows me to. And I want to be ready for them to have to add another engine onto the front of that train or to move me off because, hey, we've gotten where Matt Hoying can bring us, and I'm no longer right for the next 3, 5, 10 years future of Choice One. So I view myself very much as a servant leader. I'm here for them. They're not here for me. I'm here to use my skill set. I'm a brainstormer. I'm a wonderer. I like to think big picture, long term. I'm not a fine detail guy, which actually at the open, you kind of said that I'm probably a better engineer than you. I'm not sure that's true. And the people here that have seen me try to be an engineer would probably agree with you, Phil. I'm not a fine details guy. I like to be big picture mindset. And so I like to look forward and say, what are these opportunities that we can go to because our people are telling me they want to grow? If everybody here said, what I'm doing today, I really love and I want to keep doing it, then we're not growing. Then the next challenge for Matt is to figure out, okay, if you're a company that's not growing, the challenge is how do you maintain a really great culture? How do you grow a great culture whenever you're not infusing it with new opportunities, new growth, right? I don't know. I've not been in that environment. I think that's it could be done. I think that would be a very big challenge. Solving the challenge of growth and scaling is, I think, an easier challenge to solve than to say, okay, we're not. But that's not, like I said, that's not up to me. That's up to our people. And at the moment, our people continue to say, yeah, we want to continue to grow. We want to keep learning and having the opportunities for new responsibilities at Choice One. So,
yeah, I love that. And I kind of talked about or ask the question around kind of your role. How do you play? How do you lead? And, we did a business leader luncheon a couple of months ago, but the 3 roles of a leader, you've hit them throughout this discussion. So you started with, hey, I did business development, and a key role of a leader is really to identify opportunities for business development. But the other 2 big ones that we really spent a core of this discussion with is establishing the vision. By the way, your personal purpose and vision, getting clear on that and being able to apply that at home and at work, but also building the culture. And I think, the train analogy is fantastic because it ties the vision and the culture together. I think it's so important. So I really appreciate that. I had not heard that before, and I think it works really, really well. And just it helps me, it helps you, the listener, understand how we can think about this and think about the role of a leader, no matter if that's 80 cars behind you or 5 behind you. Start to define where you want to go. And when you define that, not defining so much, again, the tactics and strategies, but the impact, the culture, those things you want to build. Look ahead, remove the roadblocks for your team. You can do this whether you're leading 2 people, 5 people, 80 people, 500 people. You can take this approach. So Matt, this has been phenomenal. I'm going to ask you here in a little bit about just how people can find out more about you and Choice One, because it is a phenomenal place to work. I talk to different employees of Choice One, and they're always so just appreciative of the company, the opportunity they have, the understanding, the transparency, everything that you talked about, the culture. It's just a great group of people that work there. If you step back and reflect, if you kind of look back at your career, how does what you do, how does it make you feel?
Man, feel conflicted, maybe is the right answer. I'm really excited about it. I'm really excited about where I've been, where I came from, and where I am now. But at the end of the day, I feel unfulfilled because there's always more. When I think about the company purpose and I think about my own individual purpose, I hope to never get to a point where I feel like I have made that impact for everybody that I possibly could, that everybody here is the best version of themselves. That to me would be a failure of our culture, of me as a leader, if everyone here all of a sudden decided, I am who I want to be. There's nothing better for me to become. So that's where I say, unfulfilled, because I know there's more. I know there's more that needs done. I know there's more that I can do as we continue to add team members to Choice One as well. But just like my own family, as Choice One grows, as people grow and they achieve what they wanted to achieve, now all of a sudden becomes clear what the next step is. It's hard to sit here as an entry-level engineer or employee that starts on day one and tell me what they want to do in 20 years. It's easier for them to tell me what they want to do in 6 months or in a year, right? And so that's what has me excited, because we have those people that want to continue to grow and develop and learn, but it also helps motivate me because I know I'm not finished yet.
Yeah. Well, that's great. I was just going to, that word there is, you're running the race, right? And I had someone at one point said, I was talking to someone, and gosh, I forget who it was, but they just said, finish the race, finish the race. And by the way, I think there's a lesson, and I think your personality is coming through as the visionary. You're looking forward, you're trying to have an impact. And I think it's important for you and others to be grateful with where you're at, because you are having a great impact. That is so clear from the people I've talked to from your organization. So you're definitely doing that. But at the same time, that visionary, that purpose is coming through, and you're saying, but I'm not done yet. I'm going to keep having an impact. And I think part of what I hear there is you see the opportunity, and as leaders, if we can do this, but you see the opportunity and the potential and the capability of people. And now you're hiring people right out of college to, getting ready to retire in all different ages. And when you see that potential, you're saying, my job is to not pull them, but get out of them what their potential is. And I think that's aspirational, and I appreciate it. Matt, this has been wonderful. How can people find out more about you, about Choice One? Where would you like to direct them?
And they can always look me up on LinkedIn. And I'm always happy to have conversations with people, locally here. I'm always more than happy to sit down with people, lunch, whatever. I don't do coffee, but I'll go have an orange juice or something.
There you go.
But basically, Phil, I look at it as anytime I have a conversation, I have a chance to learn too. So I love sharing our story. I've been very blessed in the situation I've been placed in and the people that have been around, and I get the opportunity to share their story a lot because of my position, which is awesome. But every conversation I have, I usually get the chance to learn something from someone else too that I can then bring back and say, okay, that was interesting. I wonder how we can apply that here. So I always encourage people to reach out. I'm always happy to have a conversation. LinkedIn's probably the best way to get a hold of me, that I'm not going to lose it in a spam email folder or something like that. But yeah, any of your listeners would love to talk. I'd love to listen.
Awesome, Matt. This has been amazing for the listeners. You need to keep running the race. I encourage you to be grateful for what you've done, but keep running the race. You're not finished yet. Go after it. Have an impact. Lead like Matt has taught us to lead here. I've learned a lot myself. That's why I enjoy these discussions so much, as I get to learn from people like you that are having a great impact. Matt, thanks so much for the Purpose Matrix. Signing off.